If UNITAR is to continue to work on the realization of the SDGs, then how we are able to do that in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic recovery is absolutely central to the discussions of many countries.
The COVID-19 pandemic has set back progress in achieving the SDGs, slowed down efforts to adapt to the effects of climate change, and put tremendous pressure on the healthcare system in many countries. UNITAR is now putting its efforts into helping the UN member states to build back better while they continue realizing the SDGs.
When it comes to the recovery phase after the COVID pandemic, the online learning techniques and methodologies that UNITAR has been using for a long time has been something that has made it even more possible for UNITAR to very quickly transform the organization and its methods. And I think that this is something that is also going to be important for UNITAR also after the pandemic.
Our long experience in the use of technology has allowed us to carry on our work during the pandemic, ensuring that a large number of beneficiaries have continued access to our knowledge and learning solutions despite the current circumstances.
Because of our closed borders due to COVID at the moment, we were unable to do a face-to-face training. However, we were fortunate to have the training conducted virtually, which allowed for the opportunity to include more participants rather than having to send one or two officials for a training.
Meanwhile, our work on addressing other urgent global issues continues. One of the most challenging issues facing the world today is tackling the climate crisis.
We are very aware of the immense difficulties that member states have in generating and accessing useful data and information for decision-making, particularly our small states.
Through the Common Sensing Project, UNITAR's UN Satellite Center has worked to build the technical and analytical capacities of government officials and stakeholders to gather data and translate it into actionable intelligence in order to enhance evidence-based decision-making.
UNITAR UNISAT are ensuring that beneficiary countries have all the tools and knowledge to make use of the Common Sensing platform, which is crucial for the practical use and applicability for access to climate finance.
It's an important project also because it's designed to build capacity within our countries.
Another major challenge has been how to improve healthcare systems to build resilience, with a special focus on addressing the high rate of deaths and disabilities due to non-communicable diseases, also known as NCDs. The Defeat NCD Partnership, hosted by UNITAR, is assisting lower income and lesser developed countries to scale up sustained action against NCDs.
The ability of the Defeat NCD Partnership to co-create a cost of action plan with the ministries of health around the world is crucial. Countries can accelerate their attention to NCDs and the needs of their people by tapping the resources that Defeat NCDs offer them. The Defeat NCD Partnership thinks big, and we really appreciate that, and the marketplace truly has the potential to really change the game.
Our continuous efforts in helping countries and beneficiaries in need are only made possible with the support of our partners and donors.
Sweden very much believes in the mandate of UNITAR when it comes to the implementation of Agenda 2030.
UNITAR has the ability to build coherence, to bring all of these projects and programs together and to translate them into real action on the ground.
As we design our new strategy for the next 4 years, we are paying special attention to how we can further help our beneficiaries, especially the most vulnerable ones, through our partnerships.
As Sweden, we would warmly welcome other governments to also come together with us and support the UNITAR Strategic Framework Fund.
Together we can continue transforming mindsets through learning and knowledge and reach hundreds of thousands of beneficiaries around the world.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, Co-Chair Ambassador Dwarka Kanabadi, UNITAR Executive Director, UNITAR staff. I warmly welcome you to the Group of Friends of UNITAR virtual session. It is my pleasure to have been invited to co-chair this 8th meeting of the Friends of UNITAR, which has become a standing feature for engaging with the Geneva diplomatic community and both sharing programming accomplishments and urging support for the activities of UNITAR. Due to the COVID-19 related restrictions, we are meeting virtually, and as we have just seen in the video, UNITAR has effectively shifted many of its activities to adapt to the online environment. Despite the necessary adjustments due to COVID, I'm glad to learn that UNITAR's work continues to grow in size and outreach, with over 320,000 beneficiaries in 2020 compared to 134,000 in 2019. At today's meeting, UNITAR's activities and strategy will be discussed. Those of you who have followed UNITAR's work will know that the Institute has aligned its work plan and organizational structure with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. UNITAR's Board of Trustees approved the strategic framework that guides the UNITAR's work program until 2021. A new strategic framework for the coming 4 years is in development, and today's discussion hopefully focus on the future of UNITAR programming. From my perspective, I would encourage to continue aligning UNITAR's programming with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, especially those goals which focus on health, climate change, and clean energy. I'd like to mention 2 initiatives under UNITAR that Norway is proud to support, namely the Global Platform of Sustainable Energy in Displacement Settings, GPA, and the United Nations Satellite Center, UNOSAT. Both of these address vital aspects related to achieving the SDGs. Today, our meeting will provide an opportunity for us to familiarize ourselves with UNITAR's current work program and to hear from permanent representatives on thematic priorities and operational adjustments of UNITAR to ensure continued support to and by member states. I am sure UNITAR staff from all divisions will listen carefully to your suggestions and will also have an opportunity to react and reflect on what they hear. Since today's meeting is conducted virtually, we can use a few new ways to solicit your feedback and reflections. So please feel free also to use the chat function. It is now my pleasure to give the floor to my co-chair, Ambassador Dwarka Kanabadi, for her opening remarks. Usha, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, and thank you for assisting me to being with me as co-chair as well. Thank you also to Mr. Nicholas Sate as Executive Director for all the work that he does for us. Distinguished participants, it's such a privilege to be able to welcome you to this 8th meeting of the Friends of UNITAR. You know, I was thinking earlier that UNITAR may be one of the smaller institutions of the UN, and yet it is just irreplaceable when one considers just how much capacity building and training is needed for us to be able to achieve Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals. And this is why I'm fully in favor of such a meeting, not only briefing us about what UNITAR does, sharing with us what is possible for countries to obtain as services from UNITAR, but also to explain the functioning of UNITAR, the support that it also will require. I think many of you here would have received the link to UNITAR's 2020 results report. Let me commend the Executive Director and his team on the excellent work that UNITAR achieved, despite all the challenges of the pandemic. I think UNITAR's work undoubtedly is changing lives of people by empowering them with skills, knowledge, and other capacities needed to lead in what we consider to be an extremely complex, increasingly complex and challenging world. And the strengthening of these skills and individuals and public servants must never be underrated, because this is exactly what has helped UNITAR contribute to the achievement of more effective, inclusive, and accountable institutions across the world. It has also allowed UNITAR to contribute to building capacities for transformational change towards SDGs in every other corner of the world. What I will ask you, Excellencies and distinguished delegates, is that this meeting be not only an opportunity for us to hear and reflect on how our governments can benefit from UNITAR's services and activities, but let this also provide an occasion for us to consider how we may better support UNITAR in its activities and how we may contribute to UNITAR's work. Let me recall here that UNITAR's budget is made up 98% of project-based funds. These are earmarked for specific projects. Now, this can provide a very challenging financial climate, especially in the wake of the pandemic, as the first thing that people tend to come back on is the question of capacity building, which is a major mistake because we all need to bounce back and we need those funds to be able to bounce back. So I think some shortfall in the Institute's capacity to deliver can be there. I think, as we were discussing earlier, no amount is too small or too big. So I'm hoping that you'll be inspired by this meeting to also come forward and to say what more you can do for UNITAR. I will stop here, knowing that Mr. Nikhil Seth, the UNITAR Executive Director, will certainly touch upon this call for amplified support in his opening remarks. Nikhil, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Usha Dwarka Kanabadi, and of course, Co-Chair Ambassador Tina Smith, Excellencies, distinguished friends of UNITAR. Thank you, Ambassador Usha, for outlining the purposes of this meeting and for helping all the participants focus their minds on what we are here for and what we are hoping to achieve today. We all know that UNITAR focuses on individual capacity building, of building capacities of organizations, building capacities of institutions, largely in the most distressed part of the world, in developing countries, in countries in special situations, through high quality learning solutions. We are driven by the goals and values of the United Nations. As a young diplomat earlier in my career, I was once a beneficiary of UNITAR training in New York, and I'm sure that many of you have also benefited from the Institute's training at some time in your careers. We continue with our original mandate on diplomatic training, and we do it in Geneva, in New York, in many other multilateral venues, and for bilateral work in member states. Well, since that time, our scope of our programming has expanded to cover all the pillars of the United Nations work, including peace and security, economic development, social development, and sustainable development. Under our 2018-21 strategic framework, our programming was organized under, and we borrowed this from the 2030 agenda, the peace, people, planet, and prosperity pillars, which correspond to divisions in UNITAR. In addition, we have three cross-cutting program areas: accelerating the implementation of the 2030 agenda, multilateral diplomacy, and the optimization of the use of technologies for evidence-based decision-making. In late 2019, UNITAR integrated the Defeat NCD partnership through a hosting agreement. You heard a little bit about that in the video, and this partnership continues and contributes to helping low-income countries reduce the incidence and impact of non-communicable diseases, initially focusing on diabetes and hypertension, and it represents an important cornerstone of UNITAR's growing program portfolio in the field of health. Excellencies, for more than 1.5 years, the COVID pandemic has had profound repercussions, of course, on our lives and well-being, but also on how we interact professionally and deliver our work. As with most organizations, UNITAR was initially very affected by the pandemic, as much of our work was delivered in the field, face-to-face in poorer countries. Now, by leveraging our virtual learning environment and other IT tools, we were able to maintain business community by convening a large number of planned in-person activities for online delivery. Furthermore, we relied more on in-country expertise and human resources to make this delivery happen. Only few projects or activities had to be cancelled. We delivered nearly 80% of all our events online. And one of the benefits of going online is the democratization and expansion of the number of beneficiaries. And we did break some kind of UNITAR record by reaching more than 320,000 individuals last year through close to 900 activities and events. If you look at this slide, you will see the regional breakdown of our beneficiaries. And I also wanted to mention that we have increased and improved our outreach to female learners in 2020 and reversed the male to female gender ratio, the imbalance which was there in previous years. Now 51% of our beneficiaries are women and girls and 44% are men. UNITAR serves a wide spectrum of constituencies with almost half of our learning related beneficiaries coming from non-state sectors, including NGOs, academia, and businesses. 10% from government, national, state, and local. And we also have beneficiaries within the UN and in other international organizations. We've responded to the pandemic by broadening our portfolio of activities to increase awareness and develop knowledge related to the COVID-19 crisis. At least 59 activities we did last year dealt with some dimension of the pandemic in an area such as addressing preparedness and response in places of detention. We did some very well and highly appreciated studies on how we could prevent the transmission of COVID-19 in prisons, in increasing capacities through the sharing of knowledge and experiences on treatment guidelines and protocols, or by working with the Rwandan Ministry of Health to ensure that people with NCDs are given priority for COVID-19 vaccines. Now we have our divisions, and I wanted to highlight some of the work under the diverse pillar. Under the peace pillar, which is represented by the dove on this slide, UNITAR has continued to pursue programming aligned with Code 16, including important work to support high-level engagement activities with member states, regional organizations, and the UN. In addition to planning and facilitating high-level events, including the seminar for the special and personal representatives and envoys of the Secretary General, which is now in its 16th year. It's widely appreciated because the entire peace and security apparatus, the leadership, comes together, normally around Lake Leman, and that is a very highly appreciated activity. And we've continued with our pre-deployment training for police and military personnel to be deployed in the UN peace operations. We've developed a number of new initiatives, including the strengthening of capacities of women peacemakers in partnerships of Network of African Women in Conflict, Prevention and Mediation. It's called FemBIS Africa, or strengthening community-based reintegration processes, conflict resolution mechanisms, and community resilience and reconciliation in places such as Colombia, and by supporting youth-led peace efforts. We have found that working with communities in the area of peace is probably the most rewarding and the least done currently within the United Nations, but these yield the highest results. Under the people pillar, UNITAR promotes people's well-being, including the protection and empowerment of groups that have been marginalized and are vulnerable. A significant initiative under this pillar, we have been working with government authorities and other key stakeholders to contribute helping countries decrease the number of fatalities and injuries from road and traffic-related accidents. The statistics here are horrendous, but we were in 2020 developed the knowledge and skills of 687 law enforcement officers from national road safety agencies, including in South Africa, and we trained 3,719 stakeholders on practical tools for conducting road assessments. We've also, in the field of health, launched the Global Surgery Initiative as an effective common platform for stakeholders, working to increase access to safe and affordable surgery, obstetrics, and anesthesia, particularly for the low and middle income countries. We host a network of more than 20 affiliated centers, soon to be 25 by the end of this year, which helps amplify the impact of our training activities. These centers are in all regions of our world. Under the planet pillar, UNITAR works to support the conservation, restoration, and safeguarding of the planet for present and future generations. UNITAR continues activities on the One United Nations Climate Change Learning Partnership which brings together 36 UN and other multilateral organizations. In September last year, the UNCC Learn Partnership celebrated the issuance of its 100,000th certificate of completion. And if I remember, I gave the certificate to a young student from Brazil. The platform now offers 30 courses linked to climate change and the transition to a green economy in several languages and at no cost. I must mention that just last week, we did training for LDCs in New York, representatives who participate in the climate negotiations, a 3-day highly appreciated training on climate change. In addition, the Institute has continued our active engagement with the Partnership for Action on the Green Economy, working with ILO, UNDP, UNEP, UNIDO to provide support to countries on preparing for an inclusive green economy. It's a well-recognized player in the promotion of global green recovery in support of the response to COVID-19 pandemic. We have a new office in Bonn in Germany, which was inaugurated in October 2020, which is leading the Sustainable Cycles program called Cycle. It's an innovative research and training program focusing on solutions for sustainable production, consumption, and disposal of products in different waste streams. Cycle is being integrated into UNITAR from the UN University, and the transition of the program to the Institute will be done by December this year. We have the prosperity pillar, where we work to promote inclusive and sustainable economic growth and to create decent working opportunities for all by strengthening employability capacities, developing skills for multi-stakeholder collaboration, and enhancing knowledge on trade, on public finance, and intellectual property. UNITAR has collaboration with the FAO and has trained officials and representatives of government ministries, agriculture and trade unions and export organizations in French-speaking sub-Saharan African countries and in Central Asian countries. In partnership with the Arab Bank for Economic Development in Africa, we have worked to strengthen the capacities of financial officers from the Middle East, North African and sub-Saharan regions in order to harness digital technologies and innovation to deliver more accessible, useful, and affordable financial services to the unbanked and poorest populations. In addition to the thematic specific pillars, we work in 3 cross-cutting areas that I've mentioned under the area of accelerating the implementation of the 2030 agenda. We continue our efforts to help member states implement the agenda. Jointly with the Staff College in Turin, we have steered the work of the UN SDG learning platform, which contains 280 courses and 151 micro-learning courses. We've also upgraded something we call the StatTac, which is a statistical tool designed to help member states strengthen planning and monitoring the implementation of statistical activities in support of data production for monitoring progress on the goals and on the targets under the SDGs. Under the area of optimizing geospatial technologies, our Operational Satellites Applications Program, UNOSAT, supports projects and activities under the thematic pillars. Following the recommendation of the UN Secretary General in his report to ECOSOC in June, UNOSAT was recognized as the United Nations Satellite Center. The center will continue to serve United Nations funds, programs, and specialized activities, in addition to member states, with satellite-related analysis and imagery services. We, in 2019-20, provided 400 satellite imagery analysis, which resulted in the production of over 1,400 maps, reports, and other products. Under multilateral diplomacy, we are still the go-to entity of the United Nations for diplomats and other delegates at both the country level and in cities where the UN maintains a significant presence to enhance the understanding of the dynamics of the UN system. The Defeat NCD partnership, which I referred to earlier, has allowed us to expand our work in support of SDG 3 and in particular target 3.4 to reduce by 1/3 premature mortality due to NCDs by 2030. In 2020, the Defeat NCD partnership provided technical assistance to Myanmar and Rwanda, which resulted in the development of national costed operational plans and strategies to combat hypertension and diabetes, with the aim of supporting millions of people expected with free of charge care in 2021 and 22. This will be shortly extended to 5 other developing countries in Asia, Africa, and Latin America. I echo the recommendation of the co-chairs to continue to ensure alignment of UNITAR's program with the 2030 agenda. As the co-chair had said, the relevance of this agenda continues. And of course, there is a specific high priority for the 3 things she mentioned, including the health and of course on climate change, which are top priorities of our world community today. The Defeat NCD partnership is there to meet national capacity building and learning needs. We will build on this in the UNITAR's new strategic framework for 22-25. Excellencies and friends, the progress and achievements in programming and operations are generally reflected in the positive feedback we receive from the compliance and oversight mechanisms and UNITAR's Board of Trustees. You see some of the financial information. We are almost 100% funded, project funded, and the source of this funding is described below. We made some progress and get 6% of our funding from the private sector. We have UN entities who also contribute to some of our work, and our financial situation remains reasonably stable, and we've been growing consistently over the last 6 years, and we've delivered activities and produced results with almost $35 million in 2020. So that's about a $70 million biennial budget. And but despite this, there are weaknesses which I wanted to highlight. We are very dependent on a few set of donors, and our growth, though good, particularly in the current multilateral context, our tightly earmarked funding poses a problem for us. And to respond to that, the Board of Trustees had created the Strategic Framework Fund, which allows a little more flexibility to UNITAR in programming the money. Project funds, as you all know, are fixed for specific projects, and they have their own dynamics. They are pretty onerous to monitor, and to many donors feel a little exasperated with small amounts of funding that they give, which need to be monitored on a more regular basis. And the Strategic Framework Fund was therefore a slightly looser earmarked funding facility to support programming in strategic areas to help member states. Sweden has been one of our most generous contributors, as has been the state of Qatar, and we've got several other smaller donations to this. The project earmarking, there is no substitute for, and we realize that we will have to continue to depend on project earmark funding as the backbone of the Institute's funding. But given the flexibilities that the strategic framework funds allow to channel funding to initiatives in support of beneficiary countries who need our services most, the 93 countries that the UN's code word is the countries in special situations. And I thank the donors, of course, but I want to appeal to all of you representing member states to consider providing funding to the strategic framework to support our efforts in addressing specific needs for these most distressed countries. I also request developing countries and others in a position to do so to make whatever contributions they can. Even small amounts do add up and give us this flexibility to respond more strongly to the demand to drive this need. In ending, Excellencies, let me be allowed to express the Institute's gratitude to the member states for their support as we individually and collectively turn to building a better world from the pandemic and getting the SDGs back on track, UNITAR looks forward to working with your countries and stakeholders. Thank you, distinguished friends of UNITAR, and the floor is back to you, Ambassador Schmidt.
Thank you so much, Nikhil, and thank you for this comprehensive presentation. We are now moving to the interactive part, and we are very much looking forward to hear from representatives of permanent missions. The speakers list have been circulated beforehand, and as I said in the beginning, we are also open to take in ad hoc interventions. So I would now like to invite our distinguished colleagues representing member states to take the floor. If I may, it would like to encourage the permanent representative to focus your remarks on the following questions: the results of your country's work with UNITAR, and second, based on the Institute's role in training and capacity building, which areas should UNITAR prioritize going forward? Please remember to unmute your microphone when you are taking the floor. And I see that some of you are raising hands. The ones that are already on the speakers list don't necessarily need to do so, but I will work from the list of speakers that I already have. And the first one would be His Excellency, the Ambassador of Russia, Ambassador Gatilov. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, dear co-chairs, dear Executive Director, dear friends. I would like to thank UNITAR for organizing this event, uniting donors, partners, and the team of the Institute. The performance indicators achieved by UNITAR, namely the number of UNITAR's beneficiaries, new partnerships, and programs, tell the success story of the Institute at rather challenging times. For us, it is crucial that the Institute's activities are mostly focused on the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development from the UN system-wide perspective and always adapt to global challenges. Russia and UNITAR have an extensive experience of effective cooperation. Since 2011, together with MGIMO University, UNITAR has been organizing capacity building courses for civil servants from CIS member states and other countries, focusing on multilateral cooperation. Within this partnership, the Institute has also organized 3 editions of joint master's programs. We are now in the process of shaping a new master's in science diplomacy, a topic which has become more relevant than ever. This year, Russia and UNITAR signed another 5-year agreement, allowing us to further enrich our portfolio of joint projects. It's worth mentioning that all this work has been moved on even at this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, which eloquently demonstrates UNITAR's and main stakeholders' success in maintaining agility and business continuity. I wish the Institute's team all the best in performing an extremely important mission of being a training arm of the United Nations system. Let me assure you that Russia will remain a reliable and active partner of UNITAR in the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Gatilov. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of China. Ambassador Chen, you have the floor, sir.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you for the opening remarks by the co-chair. And I'm so happy to join today's discussion among the Friends of UNITAR. It's offered a unique opportunity for us to touch base and to reflect where we are and where are we going to go. I appreciate the update offered by Nikhil Seth, the Executive Director, for his comprehensive and very detailed update of the current situation and the endeavor, as well as the result-oriented approach. As we all know, we are now in such a interesting timing. It's quite unusual because of the changing and the challenging world situation, combined with the negative impact of the COVID-19 on the every corner of the world. So, and we are facing, in addition, challenges, traditional, non-traditional, economic slowing down, and climate change, etc. So it is high time for us to uphold unilateralism, uphold solidarity and multilateralism, and to support the UN-centered international system. So I wish to appreciate the tremendous effort, bear in mind the difficulties caused by the COVID-19. So I wish to express my appreciation for Dr. Seth and his team for their tremendous work, and for all the activities and performance under the 4 pillars of peace, people, planet, and prosperity, to facilitate the implementation of the 2030 agenda. So we are in a it's high time for us to solicit our wisdom together to move ahead in a more coherent manner. So I wish to share a couple of points. Firstly, I believe we need to move ahead in a more tailored approach so as to better serve the needs of different countries and to achieve a better policy coherence. So it is advisable to enhance communications and coordinations with both permanent missions here in Geneva and the line ministries and agencies in respective capitals, so as to prioritize projects which are conducive to the post-pandemic economic recovery and social development, and to build the brand of pilot training programs, including multi-diplomacy programs. Second, more inclusive. We are looking forward to make full use of the global network of CIFA to extend partnership with multilateral development institutions so as to scale up the scope, outputs, and beneficiaries of projects. Last but not least, we need to move ahead with a more forward-looking strategy. It is advisable to tap on the rising demand for capacity building, especially in the developing countries in the post-pandemic era. So to champion the design and implementation of online, offline, hybrid, and multi-mode projects in support of bridging digital divide and the development gap, so as to better serve the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goal. Dear colleagues, excellencies, this year marks the 50th anniversary of the restoration of the lawful seat of the People's Republic of China in the United Nations. As a strong supporter and a practitioner to multilateralism, China has been actively participating in the UN affairs over the last 50 years. In this framework, China and UNITAR enjoyed long-term and sound cooperation with reinforced communication and coordination, especially in recent years. Our partnership has been growing ever stronger. Many Chinese universities and institutions conducted cooperation programs in various forms with UNITAR. And we will continue to work together with UNITAR and others for a better world. And we will continue to render our support in both programs as well as in financial terms. To conclude, China remains ready to work together with all parties concerned to further deepen and consolidate our cooperation and make a greater contribution to world peace and development through this exercise. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Chen. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Ecuador. Ambassador Izquierdo, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much. Excellencies, distinguished co-chairs, Mr. Executive Director. I would like to begin by expressing my satisfaction for taking part in this 8th Friends of UNITAR meeting. I welcome the comprehensive report on the activities that the Institute has undertaken to support member states in capacity building and to foster the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Allow me to take this opportunity to share some information on the very important activities of UNITAR in Ecuador and to express our appreciation for its valuable support. UNITAR's presence in Ecuador comprises several portfolios, beginning with the most visible work, the CIFAL International Training Center in Quito. The center organized 18 different training activities on areas related to electoral processes, public health and vaccination, distance education, policy and practice, climate change mitigation, road safety monitoring, local disaster management, gender equality and empowerment of women, territorial development and local governance, international cooperation coordination, and other topics in support of the achievement of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Therefore, I would like to acknowledge UNITAR's efforts and commitment to continue to deliver learning and improving global capacities by working on adjusting, advancing, and expanding its online programs during this unprecedented health crisis due to the pandemic. The toolkit entitled Designing and Implementing Campaigns in Support of Vaccination Efforts to Prevent and Reduce the Spread of COVID-19 was presented last June of this year. Ecuador's efforts to vaccinate its population have been recently recognized by the World Bank by the SI published last August called Why Ecuador Vaccinates Its Population Faster Than the Rest of the World. These positive results made us all proud. I would also like to mention that as part of UNITAR's presence in Ecuador, the Institute works on migration issues, and particularly in supporting the Ecuadorian government for the implementation of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. At our request, UNITAR developed the Acknowledge Hub for Migration and Sustainable Development, endorsed by the governmental steering group of the GFMD and supported by IOM, UNCTAD, and FAO. This project envisions to promote a better understanding and the synergies between migration and sustainable development from their multidimensional and interdependent nature under the capacity building perspective. At the request of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, UNITAR and Ecuador's Diplomatic Academy implemented last month an international e-seminar entitled Negotiation Process in a Multilateral World. In another side of cooperation and with the involvement of the chairman of UNITAR Board of Trustees, Ambassador Gallegos, is the creation of the new global initiative on aging and capacity building, conceived by several organizations in Spain and Japan in close cooperation with UNITAR. We reaffirm our gratitude to the UN Assistant Secretary General and Executive Director, Mr. Nikhil Seth, and to the director, Alex Mejia, for UNITAR's current work in Ecuador. And at the same time, I'm pleased to share the new initiatives in the expansion of the portfolio and the priorities. With the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Health to work together on non-communicable diseases, and also for beginning cooperation with the Ministry of Environment of Ecuador following a meeting last week here in Geneva between Minister Manrique and the Executive Director, Nikhil Seth. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Let me just stop and go back for a second to the Executive Director, if there are reflections or comments to what we have heard so far. Mr. Nikhil Seth.
Thank you, Ambassador Smith. Specifically, there were no real questions, but I'm very appreciative of the comments that have been made, including by the direction, some of the ideas given by Ambassador Chen on how we need to be more forward-looking, how we need to have better cooperation, both through the missions here and with the line ministries. I think those are very valid points. Ambassador Gatilov, of course, has talked about Mijimo and the cooperation we have with him for the training or through the master's courses and the new master's course in science and diplomacy with the CIS countries. But I've been very encouraged, and with this, with Ecuador, of course, we have very close cooperation. I met the Minister of Environment only last week, and we are going to be cooperating in a large number of issues. So, Ambassador Smith, there's no specific thing that I want to bring up, but just express my appreciation for the very positive feedback I've been getting from all the distinguished ambassadors. Thank you, Ambassador.
Thank you so much. Let me then go back to the speakers list. And our next speaker will be the permanent representative of India. Ambassador Pandey, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Dear co-chairs, Excellencies, Sri Nikhil Seth, Executive Director, Team UNITAR, distinguished participants, a very good morning to you all. It gives me immense pleasure to participate at 8th edition of annual meeting of the Friends of UNITAR. I would like to thank the co-chairs, PRs of Norway and Mauritius, and the Executive Director of UNITAR, Sri Nikhil Seth, for inviting me to participate in this meeting. I also thank and commend the Executive Director for his strategic update, which provided to us a useful window to the vision, the activities, and the significant achievements of UNITAR, including geographical and gender balance, and the increase in the number of beneficiaries. The theme of this year's meeting is very timely and pertinent. I would like to convey my appreciation for the dynamic leadership of Sri Nikhil Seth provided to the UNITAR in continuing the UNITAR's activity in spite of the challenges posed by the pandemic. India has always accorded a high priority to its engagements with the UNITAR. India and the UNITAR have been working together closely in various fields. We have highly valued the contribution being made by the UNITAR in capacity building under its various pillars. Non-communicable diseases pose a huge challenge to health systems across the globe. The global pandemic of NCDs is a threat to sustainable development. The sustainable development goals include reducing premature deaths from the 4 main NCDs by 1/3 by 2030. Furthermore, 3 of the 9 health targets in the SDGs focus on NCDs-related issues. While we remain focused on combating COVID-19 pandemic, there should be no lack of attention on our part in fighting the threat of NCDs. In this regard, India has joined the hands with UNITAR, and we are currently in the final stages of signing a memorandum of understanding for the Defeat NCD Partnership Initiative, which is a component of UNITAR's program towards achievement of the SDGs. Through this MOU, we intend to collaborate with the UNITAR in sharing our experiences and the lessons learned from implementation of our national multi-sectoral action plan for prevention and control of common non-communicable diseases. India has contributed $50,000 to the Trust Fund for Women's Empowerment for 2021. The contribution will be used for undertaking Women's Leadership Program in accordance with the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 and the Beijing Declaration and Platform for Action. It will support advancement of women's leadership in peace and security, including in mediation and conflict resolution. Let me conclude by reiterating India's commitment to further enhance our cooperation with the UNITAR in order to contribute to the realization of the UNITAR's global agenda and priorities as outlined by the Executive Director himself. I once again congratulate the team UNITAR for its achievements and wish it success in future endeavors. A very good very good morning to you all again.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Kenya. Ambassador Mailu, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Excellencies. First and foremost, I would like to express my profound gratitude to the co-chairs of the Friends of UNITAR, and also my appreciation to the Executive Director of UNITAR, Mr. Nikhil Seth, for inviting me today and to speak and share Kenya's experience on its collaboration with UNITAR. Indeed, this meeting is very timely and provides an excellent opportunity for us to review the effectiveness of the capacity building programs already provided by UNITAR and to collectively forge a way forward on what is most suitable for the global community and our countries amidst the increasingly changing multilateral environment. Such a programs should seek not only to continue supporting our governments, like my own, achieve their national development goals, but also in helping them build back better from the serious socioeconomic effects caused by COVID-19 pandemic. Further, this meeting provides an opportunity for us to promote the good work that UNITAR has been doing towards building capacity of member states to achieve their national development blueprints, as well as contribute to the achievement of sustainable development goals. Excellencies, I wish to reiterate that COVID-19 pandemic has presented an array of global challenges which have significantly affected the implementation of the Institute's capacity building programs that have traditionally been organized in a physical format to achieve maximum benefits. However, I commend UNITAR for continuing with the implementation of these programs in a virtual mode, and I can confidently confirm here that Kenya has been a beneficiary of these online capacity development programs. Given the current situation, we urge UNITAR to continue organizing the online programs in circumstances where physical settings are not feasible as we continue with the war against the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic. I would like to share the capacity development programs that UNITAR has supported and continue to support in Kenya in effectively addressing emerging capacity development needs. UNITAR is supporting Kenya with the implementation of the United Nations Climate Change Land Project. Kenya joined the UNCC Land Partnership in 2018, which is a collaborative initiative of 36 multilateral organizations supporting countries to design and implement systemic and result-oriented climate change learning. As a part of the project, Kenya initiated the process of developing its national climate change learning strategy through a multi-stakeholder and cross-sectoral approach. The strategy will immensely contribute to addressing observed capacity challenges and support the implementation of relevant national and global climate action commitments. Some of the initial strategy implementation activities supported by UNCC Land Project in Kenya include an online training program on climate diplomas for 35 diplomats, government officials and civil society representative that was conducted from November to December 2020, and finalization of national guidelines on mainstreaming climate change into education, and training curriculum developed by the Ministry of Environment and Forestry in collaboration with the Ministry of Education through input and consultation with relevant stakeholders. UNITAR has also previously supported Kenya on a number of capacity building programs that target various thematic areas that include conflict resolution, conflict prevention, peacekeeping, and environmental conservation, among others. To this end, Kenya profoundly commends UNITAR for its support for mobilizing other partners in mounting various capacity development programs that have really gone a long way in building capacity of Kenyan government to effectively pursue its national development goals. In 2020, UNITAR and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs Foreign Service Academy signed an MOU on diplomacy and institutional capacity building program to train diplomats from the East Central African region on and beyond. This initiative will help the countries in the region build their own capacities through the support of the Foreign Service Academy. However, it is our considered view that UNITAR should prioritize a number of areas going forward in order to assist the member countries, especially developing countries, build back better, return to an upward development trajectory, and contribute to the achievement of Agenda 2030 for sustainable development. Such programs should help address major global challenges, among them: 1, growing inequalities and vulnerabilities; 2, climate change and environmental degradation; and 3, widening digital divide. This will serve as a foundation for the sustainable development goals to be actualized, as they are already lagging behind. Kenya will continue to work and cooperate with UNITAR in the coming years. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Bhutan. Ambassador Wangchuk, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. Firstly, Mr. Nichols said, Executive Director of UNITAR, distinguished co-chairs, excellencies, and dear colleagues. Firstly, I would like to thank Mr. Nichols said for inviting me to be part of today's event and for providing us with strategic updates on the work of UNITAR. I'm only too happy to share my thoughts on Bhutan's engagement with UNITAR over the past year. Bhutan values its partnership with UNITAR, and we are grateful for its meaningful contributions towards our socioeconomic development for many years now. In keeping with this spirit of partnership and solidarity, Bhutan and UNITAR have successfully collaborated on a number of projects since our last meeting. At the invitation of Mr. Nichols said, our health minister took part in a high-level panel discussion on uninterrupted health services for NCDs during the COVID-19 crisis in May this year. The minister shared her Bhutan's perspective on the issues of NCDs to find lasting solutions to reduce the incidence of NCDs, especially in light of his deep correlation with COVID-19 pandemic. We are also working with UNITAR on a MOU for financial and technical assistance to tackle NCDs in Bhutan under Defeat NCD partnership. We hope that we can finalize this MOU soon. And under another funded 3-year project, UNITAR will be helping us strengthen our capacities in the use of geospatial information for improved resilience in Asia Pacific and Africa. We are confident that the project will further enhance our capacities in providing integrated solutions for decision-making in the fields of disaster risk reductions, climate resilience, environmental preservation, and food security. On behalf of the Royal Government of Bhutan, I welcome this project with much gratitude to Norway and UNITAR. UNITAR also organized a 4-day online training program for multilateral diplomacy in November last year for 50 foreign service officers from Bhutan. The training was immensely beneficial to our young officers, many of whom are just starting their career in the foreign service. So on behalf of my ministry and all the officers who await this training program, I'd like to also thank UNITAR. We look forward to UNITAR's support in organizing similar capacity building programs in the future. One of the biggest constraints faced by developing countries, especially LDCs like Bhutan, is the rapidly evolving and emergence of new frontier technologies and the growing technology gap between rich and poor countries. So in closing, I wish to recommend that UNITAR consider supporting programs to build the knowledge and capacity of STEM educators in Bhutan. Thank you once again for this opportunity, and I look forward to working with UNITAR very closely. Thank you, Co-Chair.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And I would also now like to make a quick stop at the Executive Director, Mr. Nikhil Seth. Would you like to comment or do you have questions from what we've heard so far?
Just a quick thought, Ambassador Smith. Two of the distinguished ambassadors have spoken about the digital divide and the need for us to focus on seeing how we can bridge that. I think this is an area which I have been thinking through with my colleagues here, and we bring it to the Board of Trustees. We need to do this much more in partnership with the private sector. I think the sector which is most effective in creating the new technologies, and they have to help us in bidding. I've often had this idea, distinguished participants, that say the centers of excellence on digital technologies, including, for example, in the Silicon Valley, there's so many of the diaspora of your countries working there. And these diaspora are committed to giving back to their own countries. But what we've not been able to do very effectively is to garner the strength of this diaspora. And maybe we need to look at how this bridge between the diaspora working for these technology companies can help in the bridging of this digital divide. That's just a thought I wanted to share. Thank you very much, Ambassador Smith.
Thank you so much, Nikhil Seth. And then we will continue with the speakers list. And the next will be the permanent representative of Saudi Arabia, Ambassador Al-Wasil. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, dear co-chairs, dear executive directors, Dr. Seth, dear colleagues, dear friends. It is my pleasure to take part in this 8th meeting of Friends of UNITAR. It is a good opportunity to highlight our experience of cooperation with UNITAR and our solidarity as a group of friends to help building countries' capabilities to confront international challenges. Saudi Arabia appreciates the UNITAR's role in providing effective support, innovative learning solutions to enhance the decision-making processes and supporting international community for shaping a better future. Learning and training are essential to the success of our communities, especially in our field, which is considered as a cornerstone to drive solution of pace, of security and peace, and supporting development, prosperity's efforts. Saudi Arabia is aware of the importance of education, training, and improving the skills of individuals and societies, especially in this very unprecedented circumstances, and which impose new educational tools and rely on technology and e-learning platforms. On that way, Saudi Arabia inaugurated the 4th Industrial Revolution Center in Riyadh. This center will lead the kingdom's role in utilizing advanced technologies and our local and global implications, and to promote economic social progress to achieve the global sustainable development goals. In addition, we made a significant progress in the field of cybersecurity. Saudi Arabia ranked the 2nd in the world among countries to cybersecurity at a global level according to a global cybersecurity index. The new challenges motivated us to take forward to developing educational and training tools to keep pace with the new era. In this context, I would like to thank UNITARs for the close work we have done together on the level of security, of cybersecurity. Our relations with the UNITAR extends for many years. UNITAR has provided training support for officials from the kingdom for several years, and I'm really pleased that during the evaluations we found that the goals were achieved with the highest level of quality and effectiveness. Thank you, dear Executive Director, and all the senior management team for the constructive and productive discussions. I wish to UNITAR all the best in its endeavors to improve the skills and the knowledge of the United Nations system in order to achieve more progress and prosperity for all. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity in this important meeting.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Maldives. Ambassador Ahmed, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. Excellencies, colleagues, a very good morning to everyone. May I begin by thanking the co-chairs, Ambassador Ms. Tina Smith of Norway and Ambassador Ms. Usha of Mauritius for organizing the 8th Friends of UNITAR meeting today. I would also like to applaud the Executive Director of UNITAR, Assistant Secretary General of UN, Mr. Nikhil Seth and his team for the exceptional work they are doing to make online learning more inclusive and effective. I'm happy to hear that UNITAR has customized their teaching methods to the current conditions and has been able to double the number of online participants who are continuing to learn about SDGs, among others. Excellencies, colleagues, indeed, the COVID-19 pandemic has posed an enormous threat to the education systems worldwide. Not only is this a health crisis, this can also be considered a learning crisis. Under these circumstances, and in the area of professional and technical education, I'm happy that UNITAR has stepped up its efforts to meet the challenges of digital learning online. This has greatly helped, especially smaller countries, in continuing their learning and overcome current challenges to build back better and stay on course to achieve the SDGs. I'm especially encouraged by UNITAR's work on satellite imagery and digital mapping and data collection. This is particularly important to deal with issues of climate change, among others, which is particularly important for small island developing states such as the Maldives, that are at the front line of the battle against climate change. Importantly, this work will also help in tapping into climate funding, which is essential for strengthening climate resilience of small island developing states in particular. Therefore, we continue to need the assistance of UNITAR in advancing digital technology, including connectivity and teaching our young professionals.
Excuse me, Ambassador, is the problem with the sound?
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Can you hear? Okay, sorry about that. Let me just back up a little bit. As I was saying, it is important to continue to receive the assistance of UNITAR in advancing digital technology and connectivity and teaching our young professionals in the areas of multilateral diplomacy and also in other technical fields. The Maldives has a strong collaboration with UNITAR, and I'm happy to say that it continues to flourish. We are currently in the process of finalizing an MOU for future collaboration. Before I conclude, let me reiterate, as a friend of UNITAR, our continued support to the good work of the organization and wish UNITAR continued success in this important work. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Pakistan. Ambassador Hashmi, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Tina Smith. Thank you to the co-chair, Ambassador Usha, and special thanks to Mr. Nikhil Seth for his comprehensive briefing on the activities, the varied activities that UNITAR continues to undertake. Just a couple of points. First on, of course, I think today's the level of participation, the level of satisfaction that we are hearing from our colleagues, that is a tribute to the UNITAR's leadership and excellent excellent activities that UNITAR team is producing. Just to focus on 3 points. First is, of course, UNITAR from within the UN system represents a unique set of, it's an institution which has knowledge products, learning solutions, and it's reservoir of people who it can deploy to improve or to contribute to capacity building. In terms of Pakistan, we have started since last year. Our diplomatic academy has benefited immensely. The new probationers that we call them, the diplomats who joined the academy. According to the survey that was conducted after an online training course or related to international law, the level of satisfaction was indeed very high, more than 90%. We also collaborated our diplomatic academy with UNITAR on the upgradation of or contemporization of the international law module, and that was highly valuable. In terms of the second question, that is what should UNITAR prioritize going forward, I think I would like to second what Nikhil Seth has proposed. I think it's an excellent idea to tap into the diaspora of our countries which exist in many parts of the world, just to look into the opportunities where networking could be done and deployed in that, for capacity building and training activities in a number of areas. I think 2 more points. UNITAR has done extremely well in adapting itself to providing learning solutions in the COVID context. So from a cost effectiveness perspective, I think the virtual solutions training products, that is something to further build on. I think that has been extremely useful. And we realized that when we partnered with UNITAR, the online training course, of course, there is no substitute for in-person, training. But I think with these new technologies, Zoom and other platforms, virtual platforms, they are an excellent tool to impart training at distance. And finally, I think as a country which is a beneficiary of UNITAR's various products, we're also looking at now to contribute to the strategic framework. And I fully agree with Mr. Nikhil Seth that maybe some more flexibility in terms of loose earmarking, or maybe providing more space to UNITAR in order to tailor its training products or training tools with developing countries. So my final thought is that we are looking to increase our own contribution, and I wanted to share this. We are working with our authorities back home to increase our contribution to UNITAR, however modest it may be compared to many other donors who contribute to UNITAR. So thank you very much again, Mr. Nikhil said, your team, they do an excellent job. One last point, if I may, I think in terms of the focus, the overall frame and the overall focus of UNITAR capacity building is extremely useful. But perhaps I see the representative of IDLO also here. Maybe some sort of partnership with IDLO would also be helpful for developing countries, since IDLO focuses on international development law. That is an area where developing countries could also tap into and benefit from. Thanks again, and thank you, co-chairs, as well.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I think I will add a couple of more speakers before I go back to the Executive Director. I just want to say that we have a long list of excellent speakers. I would like to have the opportunity to give everyone the floor, so please be mindful of time. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Nepal, Ambassador Batara. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Ambassador, for giving me the floor. Co-chairs, Executive Director, Excellencies, distinguished participants, good morning. It's a great pleasure to participate in this meeting. I appreciate the Executive Director for the comprehensive presentation on UNITAR activities and also the excellent performance under your leadership. UNITAR has always been crucial in providing training and capacity development programs for developing countries, including LDCs and LLDCs. The COVID-19 pandemic has created huge challenges to the developing country, thereby weakening their development process. With limited resources and the deviation of used resources towards the fight against the pandemic, managing learning for us has become a daunting task, and naturally our youth and children are the ones affected most. The initiatives undertaken by the UNITAR in organizing various e-learning and online training programs, even during the COVID-19 pandemic, and engaging young professionals in virtual training opportunities are commendable. We appreciate UNITAR's effort in addressing capacity development needs of individuals and institutions in collaboration with the governments. As the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is centered on people and their prosperity, works on capacity development remain essential, especially for the most vulnerable countries where capacity building needs are the greatest. In case of Nepal, UNITAR has been regularly providing training and workshops for our human resources development. There has been continuous collaboration in our areas of interest, for example, on multilateral diplomacy and negotiation skills to the officials of Foreign Ministry and other government agencies. We are working with UNITAR to conclude MOU on Defeat NCD partnership, which aims to scale of action on NCDs. As Nepal is set to meet the LDC graduation target by 2026 and also to reach middle income country by 2030, we underline that the support from the UNITAR on capacity development programs would be crucial to strengthen our human capital base. To conclude, Co-Chair, Nepal stands ready to have continued engagements with the UNITAR in fulfilling its mandate towards making capacity building support to developing countries, especially LDCs and LLDCs, with the spirit of leaving no one behind. I thank you all.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Our next speaker will be the permanent representative of Nigeria. Ambassador Adejola, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you so very much, Co-Chair, and let me also just quickly stand on existing protocols to thank you. While I wholesomely welcome and commend the very comprehensive report stridently put together and highlighted by the Executive Director, it is for us a great pleasure to make this brief remarks and then to also showcase the very fact that UNITAR has been extremely beneficial to us as a country Indeed, our active engagement with the UNITAR can be traced back to the 60s when our compatriot, the late Simeon Adebo, was the Director General of the organization. And it was during this time that Nigeria also put down the trust fund of $1 million perpetual fund to set up, to set up that for us in UNITAR. On capacity building partnership, I should like to highlight that UNITAR has been providing immense training support for Nigerian government officials for many years since the creation of the Nigerian Project Office in Port Harcourt. And with the support of the Nigerian federal government, UNITAR has also trained government officials from other ECOWAS countries. And more recently, under the umbrella of the Agenda 2030 for SDGs. More specifically, the office established 16 years ago under the patronage of the River State government of Nigeria to strengthen the capacities of stakeholders in the Niger Delta region and to also provide technical response to the situation imposed in Niger Delta at that time. In the past year, the Nigerian Project Office, I should like to stress, has been able to train more than 17,000 beneficiaries in the above mentioned areas, but also offering in practical terms training programs related to MDGs at the time, and then now to SDGs. And since 2016 on areas related to SDGs, as I stressed, the main scope has been to build capacity on environmental protection and on economic empowerment. After working under the mandate for all these years, UNITAR, in coordination with the UN Deputy Secretary General, has also decided to relocate the MPO office to Abuja to work as a national landscape, and then to serve all states as well as the federal government. And the planned relocation, I would like to explain, is envisioned for early next year. And the current portfolio of the office includes several ongoing projects, as I said, and this will continue to operate from Port Harcourt while the office in Abuja is being put together. And I should quickly like to highlight 3 issues. A scholarship scheme to send young Nigerian scholars to Bihos University in Azerbaijan for a 4-year engineering degree in oil and gas has so far trained 7 scholars, and that in future will offer 15 new bursaries for the same university degree. And again, an important project on youth entrepreneurship that UNITAR is running with the support of the private sector, which in a recently created plastic recycling plant that will offer environmental training and create more employment opportunities. And a gender advancement project also is ongoing. It's entitled Ogoni Women Empowerment Project, created in partnership with the Federal Ministry of the Environment. And this has trained 400 women already, and on different agro-based skills. So as I conclude, I would like to add that the Nigerian Project Office continues to operate with a local team of professionals. A couple of efforts have been made along that line to also boost it. UNITAR, as I said, we relocate to Abuja as a way to secure more funding that will permit us to maintain the capacity building efforts that we are offering in Nigeria and in the ECOWAS region. And in that light, and as the Institute does not relent, we believe we will continue to expand the capacity development issues we are on. And for this, we also request UNITAR to keep operating with us, and then even for our partners not to support this effort. I thank you so very much. I had to rush it, but because I know our time is thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you for being mindful of time. And I will continue to try to be mindful of time by not giving the Executive Director the floor now, but will ask him to collect all his reflections for after we're through with the speakers list. And that means that the next speaker will be the Deputy Permanent Representative of Switzerland. Mr. Baumann, you have the floor, sir.
Good morning, Excellencies, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the 2 co-chairs of the Friends of UNITAR, Ambassador Tina Smith and Ambassador Usha Chandni Dwarka Kanabadi, I would also like to thank the Executive Director of UNITAR, Mr. Nikhil Seth, for his comprehensive overview, and especially also for inviting Switzerland to this meeting. Let me start by saying that UNITAR is, in our views, a very good example of a UN system-wide collaboration and coherence at all levels, given its partnerships with UN DESA, UNDP, UN Statistics Division, the regional commissions, Paris 21, and the UN resident coordinators' offices, to name just a few. Another strength of UNITAR is its multi-stakeholder and integrated approach, thereby building up and strengthening the interconnected and integrated nature of the 2030 Agenda and their anchorage in national policies. Importantly, UNITAR provides tailor-made methodologies to its partner countries, which speaks particularly well to the specific needs of these developed countries and, for example, also small island developing states. One particular initiative that Switzerland supports is the UN SDG Learn Initiative, a joint initiative by UNITAR and the UN System Staff College to provide a gateway to learning resources on the SDGs through an online platform connecting more than 50 member organizations and providing a collaborative space. An evaluation of the initiative last year further helped UNITAR to fine-tune the platform to the learning needs of its audiences. This evaluation was certainly timely given the sharply increased demand for online learning and tools in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. The impressive number of 60,000 users shows the importance of this initiative and the high relevance of the learning contents provided. Also, we are pleased that the joint Swiss-UNITAR briefing on budgetary matters could and can be offered during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. The ability to adapt to new circumstances and the transition to a virtual format was certainly key for this. The virtual conduct has made it possible to include more participants who deal with budgetary issues than ever, some even joining from the various capitals. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm particularly delighted that this year we managed for the first time to organize also a joint briefing for delegates based in New York and Geneva. Geneva and New York should work even closer together in the future. These kinds of collaborations, once again, are greatly eased by virtual and hybrid tools. This applies in particular to training courses, enabling to reach out to a wider audience or to stakeholders who, for different reasons, might not be in a position to take part in an in-person course, thus contributing to increase inclusiveness. Thus, we should keep some of the benefits of virtually held courses as an addition to in-person meetings when these will be possible again. Thank you again to the co-chairs and to the Executive Director of UNITAR. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Our next speaker will be the Deputy Permanent Representative of Egypt. Mr. Suleiman, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. First of all, I would like to extend the greetings of His Excellency Ambassador Ahmed Ihab Gamaluddin, who couldn't be with us today due to mission or business mission home. Ambassador Smith of Norway, Ambassador Osha of Mauritius, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to start by thanking Director Nikhil for his for organizing this meeting and for this initiative of Friends of UNITAR that exemplifies the willingness and commitment of UNITAR's leadership to engage with missions in Geneva. I would like also to thank Mr. Nikhil for his excellent presentation and for the incredible work that he and his team has done. It gives me a great pleasure to attend this meeting and get acquainted with the outstanding work of UNITAR. I must express my admiration for the manner in which UNITAR has adapted the changes and challenges that came along with the COVID-19 pandemic, and to acknowledge the ability and resilience in responding to those challenges. Egypt and the Egyptian mission is very keen to engage with UNITAR as leading institution that provides innovative learning solutions to enhance global decision-making and support countries' efforts in shaping a better future. In the past few months, we have been working together to identify areas of mutual interest and avenues for possible cooperation. We are currently working on some interesting projects and looking forward to sharing more details about them with you in our next meeting. Once again, I would like to reiterate my appreciation for Mr. Nikhil and his team, and thank them for the remarkable efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's then my pleasure to give the floor to the Deputy Permanent Representative of Sri Lanka. Mrs. Mendes, you have the floor.
Thank you. Distinguished Permanent Representatives of Norway and Mauritius, co-chairs, Mr. Nikhil Seth, the Executive Director, UNITAR, distinguished ambassadors and colleagues. It gives me great pleasure to represent the Permanent Mission of Sri Lanka today at the 8th Friends of UNITAR meeting on behalf of my permanent representative who could not be present due to prior commitments. I wish to thank the co-chairs for this meeting and the Executive Director of UNITAR for the comprehensive presentation. The partnership between UNITAR and Sri Lanka has been one of a shared vision and common goals and has been greatly beneficial. In the interest of time, however, I will focus on recent events. In November 2019, shortly before the pandemic, the Director of the Multilateral Diplomacy Division of UNITAR, Mr. Rabi El Haddad, and Senior Consultant and Leadership Skills Expert, Mr. Jerome Lahost, conducted a 4-day training program in Sri Lanka on effective leadership and negotiation in multilateral diplomacy. The program included 2 components: to strengthen skills and knowledge in negotiation and effective leadership, and help to enhance the knowledge and develop the negotiation skills of approximately 50 officers of the Sri Lanka Foreign Service and several other services. More recently, in March 2021, to develop skills and enhance capacity in economic diplomacy, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka, in collaboration with UNITAR's Division for Multilateral Diplomacy, implemented a 4-day e-workshop on economic diplomacy for 35 officers of the Sri Lanka Foreign Service. This program covered the evolution of multilateralism and economic diplomacy, the role of economic diplomacy in today's global and economic environment, and skills development in bilateral economic diplomacy. Participants also gained practical skills by engaging in case studies and simulation exercises on regional negotiations and dispute resolution, and achieved the learning objectives of improved knowledge, understanding, and awareness of economic diplomacies, including practical tools and techniques required to identify key economic and development issues under negotiation in bilateral, regional, and multilateral fora, and opportunities and challenges in the emerging global economy, the role of GATT and WTO in international trade, recent developments, regional trade policies, and the different negotiation rounds held. Further, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Sri Lanka and UNITAR have negotiated and finalized a MOU to be signed, which would provide a cooperative framework for future training activities. The MOU will include regular training for diplomats in conference diplomacy, multilateral negotiations, conflict resolution strategies, mediation and leadership skills, communication, implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, science diplomacy in conducting foreign relations, artificial intelligence and training by UNOSAT on the use of geoinformation technologies for disaster risk reduction and crisis management. In addition to the areas mentioned in the MOU, Sri Lanka would appreciate if UNITAR focuses in addition on the additional areas of cybersecurity and security awareness, leadership in crisis, women leadership, connecting across diplomats, business leaders, and civil society, artificial intelligence and decision making, and economic diplomacy and public diplomacy. Finally, on behalf of the many Foreign Service officers and others who have benefited immensely from UNITAR's training programs, I wish to extend my thanks to UNITAR. We look forward to working closely in partnership with UNITAR in the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's then my pleasure to give the floor to a representative for the Permanent Mission of Japan. Minister Saita, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ambassador. And I'd like to thank the Executive Director, Mr. Seth, for detailed update of the UNITAR's work. Japan highly appreciates UNITAR's efforts to continue to provide capacity building programs with the aim of helping achieve the SDGs, in particular for the most vulnerable countries. We commend UNITAR's efforts to increase the number of beneficiaries despite the difficult situation caused by COVID-19. And I would also like to commend the efforts on the gender ratio. Under the prosperity pillar, the Hiroshima office actively conducts programs on post-conflict reconstruction and disaster risk reduction based on the unique expertise and the network the office has. Japan supports many of its programs, such as the one on women's leadership in disaster risk reduction, the program on leadership and entrepreneurship in Iraq, and the program on conflict prevention in Francophone Africa. I believe those programs have contributed to enhancing the resilience of countries concerned, including small island countries. Last month, UNITAR held a webinar on disarmament, inviting UN Undersecretary General Ms. Nakamitsu and the Governor of Hiroshima Prefecture. Like such seminar, we hope UNITAR will continue to create programs based on its unique expertise, even in a difficult situation caused by COVID-19. Japan would like to continue to further strengthen cooperation with UNITAR. Thank you.
Thank you. My next speaker will be the Deputy Permanent Representative of Sudan. Mohammed, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Madam Co-Chair, for convening this important meeting. And let me also thank His Excellency, the Executive Director, Mr. Nicholstead, for his informative and important presentation. And allow me also to appreciate the commendable work that is being made by UNITAR in addressing the challenges and the crises facing our communities, and actually in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. But particularly in the wake of the pandemic, which is also exacerbating the challenges and crises that we already have. The partnership that between Sudan and UNITAR is a long-lasting one that is shared in vision and goals at the same time. Actually, in 2018, the UNITAR and UNICEF delivered a 5-day workshop with support of the IGAD in enhancing the technical capacity of officials to conduct hazardous assessment using Earth observation and data geographical information system. The workshop, which has been funded by the government of Norway, and thank you for that, has been very beneficial for Sudan, especially while Sudan is facing main hazards like droughts and floods at the same time. So it was really beneficial for having capacity building in this field. Actually, in 2020, the UNITAR also has organized a course for in water diplomacy for 12 Sudanese officials, including engineers from the Ministry of Water and Resources and diplomats, in collaboration with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and permanent representative here in Geneva. His Excellency Ambassador Ali, who couldn't make it today to be with you, has addressed the opening ceremony of the training session and expressed the appreciation of Sudan for the contribution being made by UNITAR in providing training for the Sudanese government officials on current issues. Also in January 2020, UNITAR successfully delivered a 2-day workshop in Khartoum for multilateral diplomacy and diplomatic skills for junior officials of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. The main purpose of the workshop was to strengthen the diplomats' knowledge and skills necessary to participate effectively in the international affairs and subsequently allowing them to achieve their national strategies. More than 30 participants benefited from the workshop, and the focus was on the practice-oriented skills such as public speaking and including national and group statement, the form of interventions, as well as professional writing. So the workshop was very important, and the feedback from the participant was very importantly that most of them has expressed that it is very relevant for their work, and it was very important for increasing their knowledge and skills. So also the UNITAR is envisaging another program for Sudan, which will be for allocating some funds to invest in the implementation of training activities in the framework of long-term strategy. Therefore, important project has been prepared for the next year for better equip the future generation of Sudanese civil servants of career in the United Nations on the international stage. This comes after the Sudan has everybody knows that the revolution that took place in Sudan, looking forward for more engagement with the international community, and having done so, we are looking for the assistance and provided by UNITAR and other important UN organizations. In closing, let me express the appreciation of the government of Sudan for the voluntary contributions made by different countries and made it available for UNITAR to enable it to deliver its objectives. I thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much. And as I think you all can see that we have an issue of time. So when I now give the floor to an additional list of speakers, I will ask you to keep it to the point. The first speaker on this list will be the permanent representative of Lao PDR, Ambassador Kiomati. You have the floor.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for the floor. Co-Chairs, Excellencies, colleagues, I commend.
We unfortunately cannot hear you. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank
now
you
I
so
can
much.
Hear you.
Thank you, Co-Chair, for the floor. Co-Chairs, Excellencies, colleagues, I commend UNITAR for having this meeting convened to plan to craft a new UNITAR's 5-year strategy. And thank you so much, Executive Director, for the comprehensive briefing. Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank UNITAR for the support and cooperation extended to my country, Laos, especially in human resources development through the provision of short-term scholarships to our officials to attend series of UNITAR's training courses. Madam Co-Chair, currently we are living in an unprecedented world where COVID-19 has brought wreak havoc to both human lives and economies, and big or small countries, no exception. We all will be safe unless everyone is safe. Against this backdrop, I'm urging UNITAR to focus its support and cooperation in the following 3 areas. First, digital transformation, including digital literacy training, e-commerce, and startups, training courses and attachment programs for our business people, especially youth and women, MSMEs, entrepreneurs. Second, capacity building and institution strengthening in trade and investment, facilitation along cross-border trade and economic routes and corridors, including dry ports, special economic zone, or export processing zone, and especially related issues and challenges in this regard faced by least developed countries and landlocked developing countries. And thirdly, finally, Madam Co-Chair, as you are aware that in accordance with the United Nations Development Policies Committee's assessment took place earlier this year that the Lao PDR is one of the 3 least developed countries. The Lao PDR, Bangladesh, and Nepal have met all 3 required index, namely NGI, HDI, and EVI, to graduate ourselves from the least developed status with a grace period of 5 years. That is, will graduate in 2026. Therefore, during this 5-year transition period, we would like to make our appeal to all donor countries, institutions, financial institutions, and international organizations, including UNITAR, to have a smooth and sustainable transition from this least developed status. Details of requested support and cooperation will be shared in due course when we have our to be crafted a smooth graduation strategy finalized. I thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next speaker will be from the Permanent Mission of Austria. Mr. Fotakis, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Ambassador, for giving me the floor, and many thanks for organizing this meeting to you and also to your co-host, the distinguished Ambassador of Mauritius. I will try to keep it very short. I would just wanted to take this opportunity to thank also the Executive Director of UNITAR for the briefing and for the many excellent initiatives that UNITAR has been undertaking, and particularly also the resilience that they have shown over the last year in adapting the working methods to COVID. We would have also liked to express our gratitude for the annual seminars that UNITAR is organizing in Vienna for new diplomats. We have been receiving excellent feedback on those by our colleagues at the Permanent Mission, but equally also from all colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps. And it is very important to us that UNITAR remains active also at the UN seat in Vienna, and this is why we have been providing an annual financial contribution and also intend to continue doing so. And maybe before I close, I would have liked to also ask the Executive Director whether they are considering to expanding any of their activities also to Vienna. Thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The next speaker will be the Permanent Representative of Ethiopia. Ambassador Kebede, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the floor. I would also like to thank the Executive Director for his informative and timely briefings and updates. My country, Ethiopia, has a long-standing relations with the UNITAR. UNITAR has been instrumental in providing capacity building trainings from time to time in different areas, and especially recently in the areas of different diplomatic subject matters for our young and middle-level diplomats, especially during this pandemic, by making use of virtual platform. We are very much grateful to UNITAR for its invaluable contribution in this regard and remain committed to work together and further deepen our relationship. I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. The next speaker will be from the Permanent Representation of Tunisia. Mr. Wadi Ben Sheikh Tube, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Co-Chair. Allow me, first of all, on behalf of His Excellency Mr. Sabri Bashtobji, Permanent Representative of Tunisia, who couldn't participate today, to express our thanks to UNITAR for convening this meeting and for all efforts made in order to assure the implementation of the Agenda 2030 in this exceptional context marked by the COVID-19 pandemic. Tunisia supports the work done by UNITAR in order to contribute, in addition of the implementation of the SDGs, in the preparation of the economic recovery in all areas in a post-COVID world, which requires adequate preparation from the international community. 2030 Agenda, multilateral and economic diplomacy, optimization of the use of technology constitute interesting areas of work in which Tunisia is willing to cooperate with UNITAR, which pays a particular attention to cooperation with the African continent. Tunisia is also ready to cooperate with UNITAR in the field of fight against the global COVID-19 pandemic, which requires more efforts from the international community to overcome the health and socio-economic repercussions of this global crisis. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Our next and final speaker today is the permanent representative of Lebanon. Ambassador Badura, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. I promise you to be short. First of all, I want to thank the co-chair for this for their able steering of the meeting, of this interesting meeting, and we welcome, of course, the executive director. And we want to thank him for his open and transparent and comprehensive briefing and overview about the work and the programs of UNITAR. I think that the wide participation, the enthusiastic remarks, the praise showered on the UNITAR today are highly encouraging, and we think that UNITAR really deserve acclaim. As Lebanon, we are satisfied and happy about the ongoing bilateral collaboration with UNITAR. Our country faces several crises. We have to reckon with that. Some complex structural difficulties are now hampering our development and our stability. So this entails that some important reforms at the institutional levels, the capacity building, etc., are important. So we count on UNITAR. I think that UNITAR is aware of that, and we count on UNITAR in its area of course, in its area of competence to help us in this regard. More generally, we think that UNITAR is now more relevant than ever. You know, in an age of multiple challenges and transformations, digital, technological, economical, political, health issues, etc., these transformations are feeding on each other and complicating the international context. We think that in this situation, there are risks, more and more risks of marginalizations of developing countries that are not able to cope with this tempo of transformations. So this put a real heavy stress on our public service and our diplomats in order to somehow they feel estranged of what is happening in the world, because it's difficult, it's really difficult to cope. So this in turn endangers the multilateralism in the world. We keep speaking the mantra about shoring up multilateralism, reviving multilateralism, etc. But it depends. It depends on the fact that all our countries can still play a role on the international arena and the international context. And this, of course, is contingent upon our public service and diplomats being empowered and having the tools for that. So it's important that here stands the role of UNITAR, and the UNITAR should be supported really financially and at all levels in order to come up with creative new ways of thinking, new way of devising programs, trainings, etc., in order to help us in this regard. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And let me thank all the speakers for their very valuable comments. I will now give the floor back to the Executive Director, and it will be his decision how we will use the final minutes of the meeting. Executive Director, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Smith. We all very busy people who are taking this time and come on the screen. And maybe I can just start the closing comments now. My directors have been waiting to cast the spotlight on the work they do, but time is the enemy of that presentation, and I apologize to my directors. We've got so much credit today, and I love to take all the credit, but it's actually their work. which helps UNITAR get the credit that we have today. So please, all my directors who are waiting patiently, I extend to you a sincere apology that time now prevents me giving the floor to each one of you. Let me, in summing up, start, Ambassador Usha and Ambassador Tine, by my expression of deep appreciation for what you have done, for the way you have conducted this meeting, and how you've been able to tease out such valuable comments. Of course, I start with the words of appreciation that I've heard, and all my directors have heard it. There are a lot of UNITAR staff who are listening into this conversation. We are a small organization. We are relatively non-controversial. We don't have too many controversies, which are the basis for recognition sometimes in the United Nations. It's a political organization. But I have given everyone clear guidance that please steer off political controversy. Our only ambition is in reaching those people and helping them understand what is the work we do and how can they change their attitudes and behaviors. So, but I think hearing all this appreciation, as they must have today, listening to the wonderful comments that we have and the feedback we've got, energizes us all. And I hope that this meeting will give them all that renewed energy that, yes, they might be silent, we may be under the radar, but we are still appreciated for the work we do. So I think that's a wonderful overall message that I've got from today's meeting, which I appreciate. I just wanted to tell all of you that UNITAR works only in partnerships. We cannot have the expertise in-house for all the various things that we do, the various programming, the kinds of issues that I mentioned, from plastic pollution to making mercury history to satellite training. But what we are good at is convening the best experts in the world. We want to give the best in the business, the expertise to the people we wish to serve. And we pride ourselves in the way we do it, in helping people learn, in helping the penny drop, in making people realize that they have the best advice they're getting in the world. One of the ambassadors mentioned IDLO, and yes, we go to everyone who has content expertise, and we say to them that, look, give us this content and this expertise, and get us the best trainers that you know, and we'll convert this through our methodology and pedagogy into the best possible training, customized to the audience that we wish to serve. There was one specific question from the distinguished PR of Nigeria. Yes, we are working on shifting the office from Port Harcourt to Abuja, and I will be meeting the Deputy Secretary General next week, and we will detail this a little further to see how best we can have an effective office which serves not one state in Nigeria, but which serves all of Nigeria. I also have heard a lot on the requests that are coming on digital issues, on e-commerce, for example, on digital literacy, on small and medium enterprises, on trade and investment facilitation, on dry ports, and on help to LDCs who are being asked for graduation. We will work on some of these issues. It's a question not of having that ability within UNITAR, but being able to convene the best who can impart that knowledge in the way the country wants them. I wanted to also specifically thank the ambassador from Switzerland. Switzerland is such a wonderful host government, which makes work so much easier. The sort of networks and the partnerships that we've been able to develop are basically because the host government has been extremely supportive. The health infrastructure that exists here, the ecosystem, actually, the health ecosystem that exists here, and the type of connections and networks that we can have. So I just wanted to say thank you to the Swiss government. And yes, we do work with a lot of delegates in New York, the Fifth Committee, the Security Council, the General Assembly, the Economic and Social Council, to induct them, to shorten their learning curve. And it's a deep learning curve for delegates who go first time to New York, and our ability to do that. And we shall also be working with Switzerland in the future to look at the non-permanent members of the Security Council and to see what kind of training we can do for them. The distinguished PR of Lebanon has also raised some issues on support to his country, which has been hit by one after the other by a lot of incidents which have impacted on their trajectory of growth and prosperity and development. Yes, Ambassador, we are there for you, and we shall work to see how to put something together to be able to do some of this training in Lebanon. We got a similar request from the DPR from Sudan. Of course, we are on track on that, and we are planning for several of these things, and we hope to be able to implement them. So, ambassadors, I just wanted to, on my behalf and on behalf of my staff and my directors, the people who give the real strength and energy to what we do, to thank you, to thank all the distinguished interlocutors today, and to say that, yes, we want a bigger footprint. I think Ambassador Khalil raised the issue of cost. Yes, you know, our beneficiaries have increased by 300%, and our budget has increased only by 6%. So by any raw arithmetic, that means a dramatic drop in the cost per person trained. And that is the basic parameter of how we are doing as far as cost effectiveness is concerned. So, ambassadors, I end. I hope I've been able to answer some of the questions that were directed at me, questions and comments on the future focus of our activities, which I will bring to the Board of Trustees, that there is this overwhelming perception amongst the beneficiary countries in particular that UNITAR must focus much more on issues which are in and around digital cooperation and the digital divide. And I hope when we meet again next time, with your continued support, Ambassadors Usha and Tine, that we will be able to report back on some of the positive feedback we've got from the board and what we've been actually able to implement in some of these areas which have been identified by all of you. So let me end there, distinguished Ambassadors Usha and Tine, and thank you very sincerely for the time and effort you put in. And of course, to thank all my staff, my excellent staff. I have top-notch directors and staff, and I wanted to share a secret that the average age of my real worker bees is under 30. They are the people who've helped us make this digital transformation. And the majority, Ambassadors Smith and Usha will be happy to hear, are women. So these are the worker bees of my organization, and they are the ones who are helping me deliver what we are delivering. So thank you, and over back to you.
Thank you very much, Nikhil. And I think we've all been gratified by the overwhelming response from the missions today and the very long shopping list that you have. But we will need funding for that. So whilst we thank the donors for all the contributions they make, I think we all need to get back to our capitals and try to seek more funding and ways of supporting a UNITAR in action, because you're clearly in action and we need to do that. But before I end and say thank you and adjourn the meeting, please allow me just to take one moment to recognize all your top team who is there and who have been acknowledged publicly both by the Ambassador of Pakistan, Lebanon, and so many others. The Division for Peace, Mr. Evaris Karambizi, who is a man who is not afraid of challenges and says UNITAR has many of them. He's just completed a strategic partnership with Mount Kenya University. The Division for Planet, Mr. Yoye Okana, who has more than 70 chemical-related projects and provided capacity in over 35 countries. The Division for People, Mr. Alex Major, who has huge experience in finance from World Bank, IMF, interbank development, and then even Vice Minister of Economy for Ecuador. The Division for Prosperity, Ms. Mihoko Kumamoto, who has moved from Kyushu Electric Power, where she was coordinating the transfer of technology to become a builder for UNITAR. That's a great thing. And the Division for Multilateral Diplomacy, Mr. Rahi Al-Haddad, again, who is a great achiever on a number of things related to diplomacy. The Division for Satellite Analysis and Applied Research, Mr. Ainar Bjogo, I hope I pronounced that right, Director of UNISAT, who focuses on matching technologically innovative solutions to practical benefits, the man who's going to help us with digital divide. And Mr. Mukul Bhola, Defeat NCD Partnership. I was curious about this one, and I found out he's a specialist in building partnerships, and he's worked in such challenging circumstances, from Gujarat earthquake to Ebola to everything else, I mean. So these are the people who are right behind us, helping us with UNITAR. Nikhil, you have a great team, and congratulations for leading them forward. With this, I would like to end with an expression of thanks to everybody, all participants, Executive Director, my fellow co-chair. Thank you very much for a very successful and enjoyable meeting. Thank you all for your active participation. The meeting is adjourned.